will begin the assignment with a Google spreadsheet called Rocket Data. This spreadsheet can be found in the Google Classroom assignments. Once you have opened the spreadsheet, you will need to come over to this link and click it. This will take you to the website where you will find the rockets you will be using for the activity. When you are completing the activity, you will need to switch between the two tabs from recording your data to testing your rockets. In this activity, you will be conducting an experiment to test which nose cone on a rocket will allow it to fly the highest. The independent variable in this experiment, which is the thing that you will be changing, are the nose cones. The nose cone is the tip of the rocket. So you will be testing 4 different nose cones. You will be measuring how high or the maximum altitude that the rocket goes, and you will record it in each box below that nose cone. The controls for this experiment are the things that you will not change. You have the option of changing the type of rocket. There are 4 different rockets, the kind of engines in the rockets, and the fins on the rockets. In this experiment, you will be only changing one thing, and that is the nose cone, which makes everything else about the rocket a control. You can choose whichever rocket type you would like to use. So I'm going to choose the lightning strike. That means that I will type lightning strike as my rocket type. Since I am testing all the nose cones, I will start with nose cone 1. I can choose an engine. Once I choose an engine, I have to use that engine every single time. I'm choosing B6-4, which means that my engine number will be B6-4. And I will use that engine every time I test a rocket. The last thing are the fins. Now I can choose any fin that I would like, but I have to use that fin every single time. So I will choose this one, and that is fin number 4, as in 1, 2, 3, 4. So I chose the lightning strike rocket, which I will use every single time. I'm starting with nose cone number 1. I'm using engine B6-4, and I'm using fin number 4. And now I can go to launch my rocket. Press the launch button. Your rocket will launch into the air. Notice that this is recording the altitude, the speed, which is the velocity. Slowly the rocket falls back down to the ground. And we're going to be recording our information in meters, so I'm going to click the meters tab. Then I will go to results. And this gives me all the information that I've already input. The rocket's name is Lightning Strike. The engine size was B6-4. I used fin number 4, and this is nose cone number 1. And this is the information I'm looking for. Maximum altitude 225. So I will type into the first box 225 as the maximum altitude for nose cone number 1. Then I'll go back to try again. I'm going to click the same rocket because I use the same rocket every time. I'm going to choose the second nose cone number 2. I'm always going to use engine B6-4, and I'm also always going to use fin number 4. And then I go to launch. Everything stays the same in the experiment except the nose cone, and now I will launch that rocket. Again, make sure you switch over to meters. And instead of waiting, I'm just going to click results. And I can see that, yes, it was lightning strike. Yes, it was B6-4. Yes, it was fin number 4. Nose cone number 2 is what I switched to. And my maximum altitude was 223, which means that I will come over here and type 223. And then it's back to try again. And you will do this 4 times and record the maximum height for each of the 4 nose cones, remembering not to change any other thing about the rocket. Once you have recorded the 4 altitudes for your rocket, and I'm just going to type in some numbers to move along. Now that you have collected your information, it's time to make that information into a chart. So step 1 for that will be to click in this box and drag to highlight nose cone 2, 3, and 4 and the numbers that go with it. Then I will go to Insert, go down to Chart. As you can see, Google Sheets has made a bar graph that shows the information that you recorded from your experiment. I click in the corner, I can shrink this down to size. If I click in the box, I can drag it over. Let's put it right here for now. So now I have a bar graph, but I need to make a few changes to it. Now, one change that is not necessary, but maybe you would like to do, is to change the color. So if I just click on any one of the bars, you can see here is the color, and I can change this bar graph to any of the choices. I think I'll use this orange. One change that I need to make is the title of this graph, because this bar graph says max altitude, but it doesn't really reflect what the experiment was truly about. So I'm going to come over here and go up to Chart and Axis Title. And then it says Chart Title, and then right here, Max Altitude is what the chart is called right now. By clicking the box next to it, I'm going to add to that. I want this to say Max Altitude based on nose cone shape. And I'm going to put a space right there. So if we look over here, we can see that the name of my chart has now been changed to Max Altitude based on nose cone shape, which is a better description of what this bar graph is about. Once you have made those 2 changes, I want you to just click and drag and place your bar graph at the bottom of your information, and then you have completed the assignment, and you just need to share it with me. So you would click here, click share, and type in my email address and send it to me. Now, if you want to add a little more to your assignment, what I want you to notice is that right here at the top of this bar graph, it's kind of difficult to see because our numbers were so close together, how much difference there actually was between these rockets. And part of that is because this graph is based on 50 increments, or it increases by 50. 50, 100, 150, 200, 250. Well, if you look at this bar graph, you will see that every single rocket went up to at least 200. So this bottom part is not really any new information or helpful information. What is really helpful would be to be able to see better what the difference is between where the rockets stopped. So I'm going to click in the box. I'm going to click these three dots. I'm going to go down and click copy to make a copy of a chart. I'm going to click over here. I'm going to go up to edit and go down to paste. And now you can see I have two copies of the chart. I want you to notice that as I move this box up, that red line appears across the middle, and that tells me that these two charts are lined up perfectly with each other. So, as I said, this information from 0 up to 200 is the same for all of the rockets, so that's not really helpful information. So what I'm going to do is to ignore 0 to 200 and really focus on from 200 and up. Now I will do that by changing what my graph counts by. So I'm going to go over here and go back over and I'm going to click edit again. I'm going to come over here to customize. And I want to look at the vertical axis. This up and down is vertical, across is horizontal. Horizontal, vertical. So if I click on vertical and scroll down, right here this says minimum and maximum. And that means what is the minimum value I want to show on my chart and what is the maximum value I want to show on my chart. Well, if all I care about is from 200 and up, then the minimum value I want to see is 200. I want my bar graph to start at 200. Now, once I make that change, let's take a look at the difference. So now on this chart, it starts at 200 because all the rockets went up to 200. And it goes up to 250. This is counting by 10. 200, 210, 220, 230. So now I can see better what the difference was between the rockets. These, because they're counting by 50, look almost the same, except for this one, which really sticks up. This one, you can see the difference a little better. Now, if I look at this chart again, well, actually, all the rockets made it up to 220. So this information from 200 to 220 is repetitive. It says the same thing. So I'm going to go back over here and edit this chart one more time. Customize, vertical axis. And instead of having my minimum at 200, I'm going to make my minimum 220. Now, this chart goes from 220 to 245. This gives me a much, much clearer idea of the differences between the rockets. I went from these basically looking the same to being able to clearly see the difference between them. This one is counting by fives, 220, 225, 230. So this is 225. I can see that this is 223. This is about 227. And this was up at 245. So just by changing what my graph counts by, I've been able to give myself a much clearer picture of what happened. You would just need to pay close attention to where your graph starts and to recognize that all graphs start at 0. It's just that I didn't need to show you 0 to 220 because all the graphs went up to 220. So if you choose to, you can add this additional bar graph next to the required one to clearly show the information between the two. Remember, in our experiment, our independent variable was the nose cone. That was the thing that we were changing. The dependent variable was the maximum altitude. That is what we were measuring. And the controls were the things that we didn't change. So if you chose the rocket type lightning strike, you used lightning strike every single time. If you started with engine B64, you use that one every single time. And if you started with fin number 4, you use that every single time. You can choose whichever rocket type you would like. You can choose which engine type you would like. And you can choose what fin number you would like to use. But once you make that choice, keep those choices for every single launch of the rocket. If later on you want to do this activity again, but maybe this time you want to change the fins and keep the nose cone the same, then you can type fin number 1, fin number 2, fin number 3, and fin number 4. And down here you will write nose cone. And in that experiment, you will be changing the fins every single time, but keeping the nose cone the same. Good luck with your activity. Email me if you have any questions.